Welcome to Captives Over Cocktails, the only place where we serve up complex funding strategies with a twist of lime and a splash of attitude.
We're your hosts. I'm Lydia.
And I'm Ashley. And we're here to break down the world of captives. No jargon, no fluff, just real talk about what's working, what's not, and what you actually need to know to win in this space.
So think of this as your insider happy hour. Whether you're a seasoned broker, a captive curious advisor, or just here for the vibes, we've got something for you.
So grab a drink, turn up the volume, and let's dive into the stories, strategies, and straight up truths that are reshaping the funding landscape.
This is Captives Over Cocktails. Cheers. Good afternoon, and thanks for pulling up a chair with us for another episode of Captives Over Cocktails. I'm Lydia, and today we have our first guest, a guest that is near and dear to my heart, TJ Hutchings. Welcome, TJ.
Hey, Lydia, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being on. So TJ is a managing partner at Higginbotham out of Fort Worth, Texas. And TJ focuses on growing underrepresented markets in the employee benefit space. So my TJ story, I met you, TJ, about a year and a half ago?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and so upon meeting TJ, I remember sitting in his office and he told me his why. He told me his why around why he was sitting in that office and some of his past stories that had driven him into the health insurance space. And it stuck with me. And I knew that when we eventually started this podcast, that it was important for him to be our first guest. So again, thank you for joining us. And as Ashley and I, over the first episode, told our backstories on our whys, why we do what we do every day and what drives that. I wanted to invite TJ on today to share his why. And so TJ, without further ado, I would love for you to share your story and your why around why you're in the employee benefits space.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I would say I was, initially diagnosed with cancer at age 17 and, coming from a pretty poor single parent home, we didn't have a lot of means for, additional expenses that hit. And so obviously having cancer is a huge expense. It was interesting because leading up to that point in time in my life, my mom always told me, she said, hey, whatever employer you work for in life, just ensure that they have really good health insurance, and never really understood why really until that moment in time for us. And so, yeah, obviously I went through chemo, radiation. I had a lot of complications from radiation. So I was in the hospital for about 6 months with three intestinal surgeries. And but that entire time I had some really powerful advocates that were working on behalf of my mom's company. The doctors, they really wanted me to get on a research drug. And initially it was not being covered by the insurance, but they filed multiple appeals and really pushed for us to have that research drug through my regimen of treatments, and end up getting approved based on their advocacy. And it was so fascinating to me because they literally just took us by the hand and made sure that we had everything we need through all my treatments. And so as I got well and got through college and had the opportunity to work at Higginbotham and learn more about the health insurance space, I thought, gosh, these are the people that were holding my mom and I's hand through that terrible time. And now I get to be that person for, thousands of members and different employers that I get to, work with. And to think, at the time when I, entered the industry, to think like I can make a career out of this and truly be able to serve people on such a, intimate level, day in and day out. It just got me extremely excited. And I've enjoyed, May 1st was 13 years. So I've enjoyed the last 13 years doing it.
Awesome. Well, congratulations. And I love that you said it was about the help that you received, and it was about the advocacy that you'd received from your advisor that kind of inspired you. How would you advise an employer on handling an unavoidable diagnosis or a shock to them? Like how would you handle your employer based on the experience that you had being on the other side of things?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, we just have to humanize that experience, right? Because I think initially an employer is going to think about the financial implication of what just happened, but we truly have to just break that away and look at the member involved and make sure they know and understand all of the tools and resources that we've, put in place to address this situation specifically. And I think too, from an accountability perspective, from an employer's end, really holding your consultant accountable to, following through and doing all the things that they said they were going to do when such situations like this did happen. And again, rolling their sleeves up to making sure that they're holding that member's hand, they're being the advocate and being with them day in and day out through that process. So, but it's again having a good understanding of forward-thinking thought from an employer perspective to have those right tools and resources in place before you can really address anything. But again, first and foremost, make sure you just humanize that experience for your employee.
Yeah, absolutely. And so tying captives into everything we're talking about, obviously captives can't eliminate risk entirely, but they can help the employers respond with clarity, strength, and strategy. And that strategy comes from the involvement of as well of the benefit advisor. Can you provide some examples of maybe times that you've had to help an employer walk through that process, and being in a self-funded or a captive arrangement, maybe some tools that you were able to give to the employer that you couldn't on the fully insured side?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, one that stands out for me, in a pretty recent situation, we had a really high cost medication hit the drug or hit the plan. And,
Mhm.
that prior authorization came through. We got flagged from the TPA pretty much in real time, and we're able to address that member, right then and there versus if had they been in a fully insured arrangement, I would have seen that come through on the reporting and would have had to address it, at the renewal, right? And
Right.
that's months on down, thousands of dollars being spent. Whereas, we were able to engage that member, let them know, hey, based on your plan that we've put in place, we're able to, if you go through a program, we can source this internationally. You're going to eliminate your $250 copay and get that same drug while saving the employer thousands of dollars. And so, what we've done is created a win-win situation, right? We want, to make sure that that member has a fluid experience, being able to save money on the copay side of things, still maintain that same drug. But if we can save thousands of dollars from the employer side, that's going to be a lot less stop loss claims, overall better for the captive at the end of the day. So, but it's again that real time advocacy, jumping in and addressing those claims at moment's notice versus just watching them and not being able to do anything about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, TJ, thank you so much for joining us today. I appreciate it. I appreciate your time and you sharing your story. And we look forward to seeing everyone next week.
Yeah, thanks, Lydia. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
And that's a wrap on this episode of Captives Over Cocktails. While I couldn't join live this week, I couldn't be more grateful for the conversation that unfolded between Lydia and TJ, especially the reminder that behind every claim, every policy, and every cost management strategy, there's a person. Today's guest didn't just talk shop, he shared his why. A cancer diagnosis changes everything, and hearing how that experience shaped his commitment to advocacy in this industry is something we all need to hear more of. Because yes, captives are about control and strategy, but they're also about showing up for people when it matters most. If we're not putting humanity at the center of benefits, we're all missing the point. So thank you for tuning in. If this conversation moved you, challenged you, or reminded you why you're in this work, please share it. And be sure to catch us next time, where we'll keep pulling back the curtain on captives, risk, and the real stories that fuel this industry. Until then, cheers, friends.